Exposed. 6 everyday sitting habits that could instantly transform your stroke risk. Life-changing tips. Sarah watched helplessly as time slipped away in her modest Oak Grove home. The laughter of her children, Kevin and Mia, filled the air, but it felt like an echo in a forgotten dream. Her father's recent stroke weighed heavy on her heart, casting a shadow over her relentless routine of work and family. Every day she rushed between her demanding job at the health clinic, with its unending list of patients, and the chaotic energy of motherhood, where bedtime stories and homework battles dictated her evenings. Yet, every fleeting moment became overshadowed by a tide of apprehension. Would she be next? Just as the article had warned, the sitting endless hours hunched over charts was truly a ticking time bomb. With each passing day, her body felt heavier, like lead, burdened under layers of stress. She remained active in her children's lives. Soccer practices, school plays, and family dinners became her world. But inside, the gnawing worry of not just the present, but the future consumed her. Would she get to see Mia's wedding? Would Kevin grow up without his mom? The small, tight-knit community of Oak Grove had always prided itself on its support for one another, offering potlucks and bake sales as a means of connection. But lately, Sarah felt more like an outsider looking in. Self-care? Don't be selfish. She overheard as she passed by Katie, her best friend, in the grocery store. Her heart sank. Was prioritizing herself a betrayal to her children? She spent evenings leaning over her laptop, feeling the distance grow between her and what should be been joyful moments with her children. Guilt gnawed her, pushing her deeper into the dark cavern of isolation. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then, the news hit her like a freight train. The health initiative designed to educate families about living well had spiraled into chaos. Instead of supportive conversations, community members found themselves divided, spewing anger and confusion in a town hall meeting gone wrong. Sarah felt her heart race. She couldn't stand by any longer. If nothing else, she had to fight for her family's health and her own. Standing in front of the angry faces of her neighbors, she felt the weight of expectation on her shoulders, on her heart. She wanted to shout, to scream, "We have to change." But panic held her back. How could she rally them to see? As the voices rose higher, she took a deep breath, haunted by the faces of her children. With all her might, she pressed forward, describing her father's struggles and what changes were at stake. We should not be afraid to take care of our health. An uneasy silence fell. But as she locked eyes with the crowd, she realized something. This tension could be the spark of something transformative. Could she really lead these people to a healthier mindset? With a heart full of uncertainty, she took a step forward. Would her voice break the chains of tradition and resentment, or would it lead her down a path of despair? As the heat of the moment settled in her chest, the cool rush of hope twinkled just out of reach. What came next would change everything. Sarah stood at the front of the room, her heart thrumming like a drum. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. She sensed the restless energy of the crowd, their eyes flickering with skepticism. It felt as if she was balanced on the edge of a cliff, about to leap into an abyss. If only she could find the right words to connect, to make them understand. Taking a deep breath, she reached deep into her soul, pulling forth an urgency she hadn't known was there. When my father had a stroke, it was a wake-up call. If we don't change our habits now, we risk losing our loved ones, or ourselves. The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. A murmuring rippled through the audience, a sign that maybe, just maybe, she was breaking through. She continued, painting vivid pictures of moments in her life: her father's laughter over the dinner table, Kevin's first soccer goal, Mia's giggles during family movie nights. Each image felt like a lifeline thrown into the deep waters of despair. We can create healthier futures for our kids. But we need to do this together. Suddenly, a woman in the back of the room raised her hand. Sarah, what do you mean by healthier futures? Isn't this just another trend? Her voice was skeptical, perhaps even angry. It's not a trend. It's a choice. Every meal we prepare, every moment we choose to move instead of sit, every time we talk to our neighbors about health, we're making a difference. Sarah felt the fire igniting within her. She could see the flicker of doubt begin to erode in the expressions around her. Do you remember the last potluck we organized? Everyone brought a dish loaded with sugar. She pressed on, her palms sweaty but determined. What if we turned that into something nutritious? What if we shared recipes that prioritize our health over what is easy or convenient? Slowly, nods of agreement began to surface. She could feel a shift, a crack forming in the facade of disinterest. We need to establish a support system, a group that holds each other accountable. This isn't just about us, but about our families and their futures, Sarah added, her voice nearly breaking with emotion. The moment felt electric, a turning point. But then, the same voice echoed from the back, but what about money? Health costs a fortune. Health doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. She clasped her hands together, willing her resolve to resonate. Small changes add up. Cooking at home, gardening, walking instead of driving, these are things we can do that one tea break the bank. The tension in the room began to shift as discussion started to bubble. Sarah's pulse raced. This was the momentum she needed. Let us organize meetings, cooking classes, even fitness events in the park. Let us make health a community effort. Arms were raised in enthusiasm, shadows of doubt giving way to a glimmer of hope. Yet, as adrenaline surged through her, an unsettling thought lingered. What if this was just a fleeting moment, a spark that wouldn't catch fire? She scanned the faces before her, locked in gleaming eyes of determination, but could she really keep the flame alive? As she concluded, a chorus of voices called out in agreement, but her heart fluttered with uncertainty. How can I lead this movement? Can I change things for real? The question echoed in her mind, looming larger than ever as she stepped down from the makeshift podium. In the silence that followed, Sarah understood one truth: the hardest challenge lay ahead. This was just the beginning. As the room began to organize into small groups of excited chatter, she felt a sudden wave of exhaustion wash over her. Was she strong enough to carry this weight? But the moment to decide loomed larger than any doubt. The next step could either catapult them into a healthier future or leave them back where they started. As she made her way through the crowd, a familiar face emerged from the back: her mother, fragile yet fierce, her eyes glistening with pride. Would this support be enough to bolster her own shaken resolve? The path had opened before Sarah, woven with promise and uncertainty. The urgency to act flared within her, but could she navigate the storm ahead without losing herself? Whatever lay ahead, one truth resonated deep in her heart: the fight for change had only just begun. Would she rise to the occasion? The hum of chatter in the room swirled around Sarah like a warm embrace. She felt lighter, buoyed by the voices echoing her thoughts. The spark she ignited now fanned into a small flame of hope. Yet, something heavy still shadowed her heart. Responding to her mother's proud gaze, Sarah's chest tightened with expectation. Her mother had always been her anchor, but now she needed to be the captain of this tumultuous ship. "Mom," Sarah murmured, reaching her side, "what if I can't keep them engaged? What if they fall back into their old ways?" Her mother smiled softly, wrapping an arm around Sarah's shoulders. You were born to inspire, sweetheart. Don't underestimate your power. The warmth of her mother's words melted some of Sarah's trepidation, but anxiety still nipped at her heels. As she moved through the crowd, Sarah overheard snippets of conversation. A group of women debated healthy snack options, while two men discussed gardening tips. Encouraged by the budding dialogue, Sarah decided to jump in. "Did someone mention gardening?" she interjected, approaching the two men. "It's such a great way to get fresh produce and exercise at the same time." Instantly, they turned, engaged. Ideas bounced back and forth, thoughts of community gardens sparking enthusiasm in Sarah's heart. Minutes turned into an hour, as the gathering blossomed into a mini-movement. Excitement crackled in the air. But as Sarah almost floated through conversations sharing her tips, advocating for small changes, a familiar voice broke through her reverie. "I still don't know how we can pull this off," said the skeptical woman, arms crossed tightly. "What you're proposing sounds nice, but it's not realistic for most families." That harsh uncertainty sliced through the warmth. A knot of panic tightened in her stomach, confidence faltering in the face of doubt. What if she is right? She thought as whispers of unachievable dreams began to swirl. Before she could spiral into despair, another voice chimed in. "It's realistic if we tackle it together." A young woman stepped forward, her eyes bright with conviction. "We need to start with something simple. Let's share a community meal in the park, showcase healthy recipes, and invite our friends. The benefits would be endless." Sarah's heart fluttered again, grateful for the ease with which they were getting involved. This was exactly what she needed. Each suggestion was a stone laid in the foundation of their movement. Encouragement stirred the room, voices blending in a chorus of ideas and proposals. A community meal was settled upon, and suddenly, everything felt a bit less daunting for Sarah. She began to envision how this one event could unlock doors to more discussions, deeper connections, and actual change. Yet a thought lingered, rising just beneath the surface. What if we fail? The smile she wore felt strained when her own mind questioned the very foundation of the energy around her. Could she really lead this effort? Was she enough to navigate the many challenges they would surely face? And in that moment, lost in the whirlwind of experiences and emotions, she realized the path was not just hers to walk. It was theirs, a shared journey brought to life through collective hope. As conversations danced in the air, Sarah spotted her mother again. Their eyes met, and she felt a surge of strength. Perhaps she could lead if she could lean into community support. The group continued planning, sections breaking off to discuss logistics. There was excitement in the air. Yet, amid all the chatter, her gaze fell on the woman who had initially doubted her vision. The skepticism still shone bright in her eyes. What could she do to win her over? How could they address the fears of everyone present? Suddenly, the crowd became a blur, and all that filled Sarah's thoughts was resolve. She had to shift their mindset, to embrace vulnerability, and open up difficult conversations. The organization of the gathering was merely the surface. Real change would require deeper emotional connections and realizations. As they prepared to split into groups, she grabbed a small notepad. Scribbling down key takeaways and reminders for herself, she felt a sense of urgency pressing on her shoulders. This was only the start. There was so much more work to be done. "All right," she called out, drawing their attention. "Let us regroup in an hour. We need to firm up our plans for this meal and make sure everyone feels included." The murmurs of agreement surged again, and for a brief moment, Sarah felt invincible. But as she walked away from the crowd, the uncertainty loomed larger than before. Would they hold on to this spark, or would it fizzle like before? And what if she couldn't keep the momentum going? The struggle ahead felt monumental, and Sarah found herself grasping for confidence. Just when she thought she was beginning to rise to the occasion, an unexpected voice echoed through her mind. "Are you ready for a challenge that could change everything?" As she faced the uncertain road ahead, Sarah realized that only time would tell. Would she be able to rally her community, overcome doubt, and lead them towards a healthier future? Or would the initial glow of excitement dim into apathy once more? The tension in the air buzzed as Sarah stepped away, her heart racing. She found a quieter corner near the refreshments table, the faint sounds of laughter and brainstorming filtering through the walls. Her fingers tapped nervously against the notepad she clutched. A sea of ideas swirled in her head, but the questions that loomed were heavy, like weights against her will. How could she break through to the woman who spoke the initial doubts? What could she say that would make her see the potential in this gathering? Would it even matter? Sipping on a lukewarm cup of coffee, she tried to calm her thoughts, but only found herself staring blankly at the paper. She needed to rally not just the support of her friends, but also confront the realities that faced them, all the fears that many carried but were too hesitant to voice. Suddenly, the door swung open, and in walked a familiar figure, the skeptical woman, still crossed arms, yet with a set jaw that suggested determination rather than disdain. She caught Sarah's eye and smiled faintly, a different expression from the one she had worn earlier. Hope sparked within Sarah. Perhaps the conversation she thought would be daunting could unfold into something transformative. "Hey," Sarah said, feeling a rush of warmth and anxiety blend together. "Can we talk for a moment?" The woman hesitated, then nodded, uncrossing her arms. Sarah led her to a small nook off to the side, away from prying ears. "I really appreciated your honesty earlier," Sarah began, her voice steadying. "I know it can seem overwhelming, but we could really use your perspective." The woman leaned against the wall, tilting her head in thought. "Look, I'm not trying to shoot you down. I just want to be realistic." "I get that, but what if we flip the conversation?" Sarah's heart raced as she spoke. "What if we focused on what is possible instead? We have the ability to shape this into something truly impactful. Everyone is afraid of failing, but isn't that part of growth?" A moment of silence passed, and Sarah held her breath. She realized the vulnerability in her words. This was the beginning of a connection they both needed, built on the same foundation of fear. "What if we start small?" the woman replied slowly. "Maybe just a few families at first, testing new recipes and sharing experiences. If it fails, it fails. But if it works, then we build from there." "Yes!" Sarah exclaimed, her excitement spilling over. "A trial run, like a pilot project. We can gather feedback, adjust, and grow it together." The woman's face softened, and for the first time, Sarah saw a flicker of belief in her eyes. "You're right. I know everyone has the will to make better changes. It's just about finding the right path together." As they stood there in the quiet corner, a mutual understanding blossomed between them. Sarah felt empowered, a sense of purpose igniting her spirit. This wasn't just about a community meal anymore, it was about deeper connections, about hope layered on understanding. When they rejoined the group, Sarah's heart swelled. She could see the ambition in their eyes, the energy pulsing like a heartbeat. They all wanted to be part of this change. Her voice grew steadier, more assured. "Let us do that pilot project. Let us invite a few families, share meals, stories, and bring our challenges to the table." As the group buzzed with renewed energy, Sarah couldn't help but think of the woman by her side. They'd come to an understanding, and while they faced challenges ahead, this was a major step forward. Maybe the initial doubt was simply a shadow cast by uncertainty, easily dispelled by open minds and willingness to listen. Yet, as they started brainstorming potential dates for the meal, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The weight of expectations pressed against her, and she wondered what other hurdles awaited. Would they continue in solidarity or stumble under the pressure? Are we ready to take that leap together and grow something wonderful? Sarah pondered, the question hanging in the air as they resumed planning. The possibilities stretching before them like an unwritten page, And just then, in the middle of the excited chatter, one thought pushed to the front of her mind. What happens when the first meal brings not just joy, but unearths hidden tensions within the community? The buzz of ideas filled the room as they gathered excitement around the pilot project. Sarah could feel the pulse of anticipation in the air. Ideas bounced from one person to another like a vibrant game of catch. Everyone seemed eager, ready to dive into this shared venture. But somewhere deep inside, an unease lingered. "Okay," Sarah said, pulling everyone's attention back to her. "Let us outline what we actually want to achieve with this first meal." The group shifted, a murmur of agreement washing over them. "How about we invite 4 families to start?" one member suggested. "We can go with a simple theme like comfort food. It's something we can all relate to." Nods of agreement flowed around the room. Sarah's heart lightened. This felt right. "Comfort food sounds great," she encouraged. "But what about the conversations we hope to spark? Let us ensure we don't lose sight of our main goal, building connections and understanding." As Sarah spoke, she watched the skeptical woman from earlier, now an ally, leaning closer as if drawn to the discussion. There was determination radiating from her as well. She was engaged and asking questions, pushing the group to think deeper. What if we each shared a story connected to our comfort food? Like how it played a role in our lives? The woman suggested, her voice steady but charged with a hint of vulnerability. "That's a wonderful idea," Sarah beamed. "Each family could share their dish and its backstory. It'll help us connect beyond just the food itself." Encouraged by her enthusiasm, others joined in. Soon they were each throwing out ideas. What if they added a mini workshop on how to cook some traditional recipes? Or perhaps a DIY seating arrangement to promote mingling rather than just family groups. As they mapped out plans, Sarah caught herself getting lost in the potential of the project. In those moments, it felt like they were not merely planning a meal. They were laying the foundation for something bigger, bridging gaps, healing wounds, creating a path forward for their community. Then, as they finalized their ideas, a quiet fell over the group. Sarah felt that familiar weight press down again. A sudden realization hung in the air. What if people aren't ready? She wondered. What if the meal stirs up old grievances instead of unity? The room buzzed with laughter, but anxiety tangled with her excitement. She glanced around at her friends, their faces glowing with determination and optimism. But could one meal dismantle years of tension? The skeptical woman caught Sarah's eye, seeming to sense her trepidation. "This is just the first step," she said, lowering her voice to ensure only Sarah could hear. "If we focus on understanding, we can address any discord as it arises. It won't happen overnight, but we can navigate it together." A spark ignited in Sarah's chest. Perhaps it was true. Maybe this first meal could open the doors to deeper conversations, even hard ones. As they wrapped up their discussion, an excitement surged through Sarah. But that nagging thought lingered still. Would they truly be ready for what lay underneath? "All right, let us set a date. I want this to happen soon." Sarah smiled, but deep down, uncertainty simmered. "But we need to be prepared for anything. Think about the conversations that arise. What happens if we dig too deep?" The group nodded, but the unease spread through Sarah like ripples on a pond. She felt a pull, an urge to ensure everything was just right. Just then, as they agreed to gather next week to finalize the details, her mind raced. Would they forge ahead, united by hope, or would the first meal unveil truths they weren't ready to face? The uneasiness settled back into her heart like a shadow, whispering of challenges yet to come. And as they made plans, one burning question echoed louder than the others in Sarah's mind. What if their attempt at connection unveiled wounds that were not yet healed, creating more rift than unity? The days leading up to the meal were filled with excitement, but Sarah could feel the tension building like a storm just beyond the horizon. The planning session had sparked something hopeful, Yet the weight of expectation settled heavily on her shoulders. Inviting 4 families to share their comfort food was one thing, but what if it unleashed something unmanageable? She spent each night jotting down thoughts and concerns, her notebook filling with ideas, but also with worries. What if the families clashed? What if the stories shared exposed wounds they wouldn't be able to heal? With every passing day, her imagination would take her to dark places, and she caught herself sitting up late, staring at the answers she didn't have. As the designated day arrived, her heart raced as she set the tables and placed the vibrant dishes on display. The smells filled the air: homemade chicken pot pie, hearty lasagna, spicy gumbo, each dish representing a world of memories tied to laughter, love, and, sometimes, loss. Sarah tried to brush off the apprehension that nagged at her, convincing herself that this was just a meal. But in her heart, she knew it was more. When the families arrived, the atmosphere shifted. They entered with smiles, but beneath the surface, apprehension shimmered like heat on pavement. Sarah welcomed them with open arms, her smile wide but shaky. The skeptical woman was among them, offering her support silently as they crowded around the table. "Let us break bread together," Sarah announced, her voice clear yet trembling. The families exchanged nervous glances but sat down. Plates were filled, and soon the warmth of the food wrapped around them like a cozy quilt. She felt the tension loosen a little as they began to share bites and casual stories. Yet, as the meal progressed, Sarah sensed the moment drawing near when it would be time to dive deeper. It hung in the air, a tightrope of vulnerability stretched above laughter and chatter. As dessert approached, she made the decision to address the elephant in the room. "I know we're here to enjoy good food, but I'd like for us to share the stories behind our comfort foods," she said, her voice steadying with each word. "It's about understanding each other, truly connecting." A hush fell. One father cleared his throat first, recounting childhood memories stirred by the aroma of his mother's lasagna. Others followed. Stories mingled with laughter, truths nested beside painful recollections. Then came the moment Sarah had dreaded. A mother, with tears glistening in her eyes, spoke of loss tied to a beloved family recipe. As more stories of heartache woven with joy poured out, she could feel the atmosphere thickening. There was a pause, a breath suspended in silence, a connection binding them as they shared their vulnerabilities. What she had apprehended could overwhelm them instead forged a deeper bond. It was raw but beautiful. They were discovering the power of shared experience. Yet, as the weight of those moments settled in, Sarah felt conflicted. Would they be able to handle this new layer of connection? Were they equipped emotionally to process what had come to light? As the last echoes of their stories faded into the evening, a collective sigh of relief swept through the room, but the tension of unspoken feelings still lingered. They had made progress, but how deep did their willingness to connect truly run? Sarah searched the faces around her, awash in a mix of joy and uncertainty. What would come next? Could they navigate the new revelations without falling apart? With those thoughts racing in her mind, she quietly whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The evening lingered like the fading light of dusk. Laughter had given way to an uneasy quiet, and Sarah could see the shift in energy as families mulled over the weighty stories they had just shared. She felt it too, the threads of vulnerability woven tightly around their hearts. This was uncharted territory, and she reached for the pitcher of iced tea, pouring a glass that trembled slightly in her hand. No one wanted to break the silence. The chime of the clock in the corner rang out softly, reminding them of the time, reminding Sarah of the short distance they had traveled together, yet how far the road ahead still lay. She scanned the table, where plates now lay half-finished, forgotten. "Sometimes, sharing our stories brings both relief and confusion," she finally ventured, her voice steady but softer. "It's okay to feel a mix of emotions." A nod of agreement rippled through the group, and finally, the skeptical woman spoke up. It's hard, isn't it, to open up like that. Her voice was thick with emotion, but resonated with a sense of breakthrough. Yes, another mother added, brushing away a stray tear. It's easier to hide in our kitchens than to share the truths behind those recipes. That comment hung in the air like a heavy fog, cloaking them in a familiar unease. Sarah felt her heart race, seeing a bright moment turning into something deeper. Could this be the turning point? The moment when they moved beyond just food and laughter into something truly transformative? The first father cleared his throat. I think we need to keep talking. Maybe not all tonight, but this connection, it feels good. Applause followed, but it was a hesitant clapping, like participants uncertain if they were cheering for a victory or simply acknowledging a courageous first step. With each exchange, the walls began to dissolve. Fissures appeared in the armor they had built around their vulnerabilities. Encouraged, Sarah turned to the father. What do you mean? Are you suggesting we do this again sometime? Why not? Let us keep sharing. We could rotate houses, share more foods, maybe even, I don't know, put together a small cookbook of our family recipes and stories, he proposed, excitement building in his voice as he continued. It could be a celebration of everything we've talked about tonight. All eyes lit up with the idea. Excitement bubbled forth, alongside nervousness. The talk of next time felt like a lifeline, an invitation to keep exploring the emotional labyrinth they had unknowingly stepped into. But Sarah's stomach twisted and a knot of fear began to brew. What if the next conversations dug up more heartache? What if the stories they unearthed were too much? Would they still want to gather if raw emotions became a recurring theme? She took a breath, indicating the unfiltered nature of her thoughts. I love that idea, but are we all ready to keep delving this deep? Some stories might not be easy. Another nod, and murmurs of unease flitted around the table. Then came the timid voice of a teenage daughter, barely audible. I want to know more about my own family. The real stories, the hard ones. A hush descended again, the teenage girl's admission reverberating like a confession. Sarah's heart ached at the admission. She too wished to know everything about her own family's past, but what if peeling back the layers exposed something too painful to bear? The air crackled with possibility, but also with trepidation. Was stepping further into this emotional unknown a path toward healing, or chaos? As the first notes of uncertainty played through the evening's air, Sarah felt a shift within herself. She had to trust. Trust that they would navigate these waters together, that the rawness they unearthed could usher in a collective strength. Let us do it then, she said, her smile breaking through the anxiety, lighting up her features. Let us plan to meet again. I believe we have something beautiful to build upon. With renewed energy, the families nodded in unison as the room filled with softer, more hopeful laughter. And as they gathered their belongings, hearts slightly lighter, an approaching storm of deeper revelations loomed ever closer. As they said their goodbyes, Sarah felt the transformative weight of what lay ahead. The next gathering would need careful navigation, but one question echoed louder than the rest. What stories lay buried beneath the surface, waiting for them to dig deeper? The next few days passed in a blur for Sarah. Each time she closed her eyes, the warmth of the evening lingered, but it was soon overshadowed by the unease creeping back in. She sat in her living room, a thick blanket cuddling around her, the echoes of laughter now a distant memory. The weight of the upcoming gathering felt heavy on her chest. Her phone buzzed beside her. It was a message from the teenage girl, Nina. Hey, Sarah. I've been thinking about what stories we could share next time. Would it be okay if I brought my journal? A smile broke through Sarah's anxiety. The enthusiasm was palpable. Nina seemed ready to tackle whatever it was her family had hidden away. After a moment's thought, Sarah replied, Absolutely. Your thoughts are welcome. It's a safe space for everyone. But then doubt settled back in. Would Nina truly find the courage to share? Would the others, especially the nervous parents, follow suit? Would their fears be swallowed by genuine connection, or would they drown in the depths of painful truths? As days turned into another unsettled evening, Sarah found herself preparing for the gathering with equal parts excitement and dread. She organized the space, arranging chairs in a circle, a layout she hoped would foster openness. She needed a way to keep the spirit of conversation alive, something to encourage sharing without forcing it. On the morning of the gathering, she decided to prepare a small talk. Something lighthearted yet meaningful. She made a big pot of her grandmother's chicken soup, the kind that held secrets and comfort. As the rich aroma filled her home, she hoped the familiar smell would ease them into the evening. The time arrived, and one by one, families poured into her home. Smiling faces, though nervousness flickered in their eyes. Each arrival felt like opening a book, some pages unread, others worn and weathered. Once everyone settled in, Sarah stood up, cradling a warm bowl of soup. She glanced at the faces gathered around her. It was a blend of hope and worry. "Thank you for coming back," she began, her heart fluttering. "Tonight, I thought we could start with something simple." She lifted the bowl, letting the steam rise. "This soup has been in my family for generations. Every ingredient carries a story. And tonight, I invite you to share your own ingredients, the stories and memories that have defined you." There was a pause, uncertainty thickening the air as each person considered her words. A child giggled, breaking the tension slightly, and Sarah took that as a cue. Feel free to start small. Just like an ingredient in a dish, every story matters, no matter how simple it seems. The room seemed to soften with her invitation. And then Nina spoke up first, her voice steady yet trembling. "I want to talk about my grandpa and the letter he left for us." Her words came out slowly but filled with determination. Sarah watched as the other families leaned in, captivated. For a brief moment, the weight of their worries lifted. As Nina shared her grandfather's story, delicate and raw, Sarah felt a shift in the air. The room vibrated with understanding and emotion. The rich stories flowed around the circle, some laughter mixed with tears, each tale more profound than the last. But just as the night seemed to be flowing beautifully, a sudden tension rippled through the air when a father, his brow furrowed, blurted out, "What if some stories are just too hard to tell?" Sarah's heart raced at the unguarded question. Would this end the magic they were building? She looked around at the group, sensing their collective breaths held, uncertainty hanging like a storm cloud. It was a pivotal moment, but it was also an opportunity. "That's okay," she reassured, her voice steady but warm. "We're here, and we can take it one story at a time. We'll hold each other as hands as we dig deeper together." As the conversations reignited, laughter alongside heavy feelings began to swirl, leaving Sarah hoping the night would hold more bonds than tears. But as the clock ticked on, she couldn't help but wonder, what truths would they uncover next? And what would happen if some burdens were too much to bear? The night wore on, the warmth of the soup fading into an atmosphere heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah watched as Nina continued to share, her voice steadying with each word. The other families were entranced, their own stories waiting like coiled springs, ready to be released. But Sarah could still feel the weight of the father's question hanging above them all. As smiles mingled with tears, a mother named Claire, whose hands trembled slightly while cradling her cup, broke her silence. "I've always been afraid of sharing my own story," she admitted softly. "What if it hurts someone I love? What if they don't understand?" Her confession stirred a ripple of murmurs. Every head in the circle nodded, and a few shared knowing glances. It struck Sarah then how many unvoiced fears lingered in the room, making invisible walls between them. She felt the urgency to address the shadow looming over their gathering. "Claire," Sarah said gently, What you're feeling is something so many people grapple with. We all hold secrets, and the hardest stories to tell often have the greatest potential to heal. The room felt charged with a deep empathy as Claire's eyes shimmered with unspilled tears. But then a young boy piped up, his innocent curiosity shining bright. Why would we be afraid to talk? Isn't sharing what makes us friends? Laughter bubbled up spontaneously, cutting through the tension. Sarah couldn't help but smile, taking a moment to appreciate the profound insight wrapped in the simplicity of a child's words. Exactly, she said, her heart swelling. Talking brings us closer, helps us understand each other better. It's like saying, hey, I trust you enough to show you my world and my struggles. As the laughter faded, she noticed another parent, Michael, sitting quietly in the corner. Sarah felt his gaze on her, heavy yet seeking. What if my story changes how my kids see me? He asked, the concern etched on his face. What if they see me as weak? That's a powerful concern, Sarah replied, her heart aching for him. But your vulnerability can teach them strength. It's about showing that it's okay to be human and imperfect. That might just give them the courage to share their own struggles in the future. Michael shifted in his seat, absorbing her words. The group collectively held their breath, waiting for a response. Would he open up? Suddenly Nina, sensing the moment, interjected, I think everyone is strong in their own way. My grandpa's letter taught me that sharing can make you stronger. Emboldened, another voice broke in. I thought I had to be perfect for my kids. I see now that showing my true self could actually help them feel less alone, a mother admitted, her face brightening with understanding. With each brave confession, the air began to crackle with energy, a sense of healing unfolding. Sarah felt hope seep into the cracks of uncertainty, filling her home with the promise of deeper connections. Each story became a thread weaving them together, creating a tapestry of shared experiences. But just as they seemed to be finding their ground, the initial father's question echoed in Sarah's mind again. What lay beneath the surface? What truths were still simmering unchecked? She could feel the tension shift once more. Some hearts were still heavy and reluctant to share. Before she could invite anyone else to speak, the doorbell rang. The unexpected sound jolted Sarah, breaking the moment's intensity. Who could it be? Who could that be? She whispered, sharing a glance with Nina, who shrugged her shoulders, her eyes wide with curiosity. As Sarah moved to the door, a flash of uncertainty coursed through her. The night had turned into something profound, yet now, the unknown lingered just outside her home, waiting to disrupt their fragile cocoon of vulnerability. With her hand on the doorknob, she paused, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on her. Who would stand behind that door? And would they help or hinder the journey of uncovering their shared truths? When Sarah opened the front door, the evening air rushed in, carrying with it a familiar face, Katie, her best friend from childhood. Clad in her signature plaid shirt and armed with a dessert tray, Katie's bright smile seemed out of place against the heavy atmosphere thick with unresolved emotions. Hey, I thought I'd join the fun, she chirped, holding up a tray of brownies, oblivious to the tension. Perfect timing, Sarah replied, her brow furrowing as she felt the weight of earlier conversations hanging in the air. She stepped aside, allowing Katie to enter, still unsure of how to integrate her friend into this deeply personal gathering. As Katie set the tray down, the room fell silent. The warmth was almost palpable as curious eyes turned toward her. So what is going on? Katie asked, her excitement momentarily dimmed by the anxious expressions around her. Just then, another father from the group, one who had been speaking before the interruption, exclaimed, We're digging deep into some tough stuff here. And with that, Katie's expression shifted, transitioning from carefree companion to compassionate friend. Oh, I see, she said, eyes softening with understanding. You guys are working through some serious feelings. I used to run from that, but it's so important to face it. Let me tell you with that, the conversation flicked back to life. Katie shared a story of her own struggles, unearthing layers of gratitude and regret, mirroring the room's tension. Laughter resonated with a side of heaviness, connecting the past with their present. Each laugh snipped at the threads of doubt, weaving an unspoken agreement that vulnerability was worth the risk. With each shared story, Sarah felt a sense of solidarity in the air, a collective ether igniting their spirits. She took a breath, buoyed by this unexpected twist. The community was expanding, embracing the wider circle they had longed for. After Katie finished, the young boy sitting across from her spoke again, his voice breaking through the adult conversations. "Can we share what we're grateful for?" he asked, his enthusiasm contagious. "Yes." Sarah felt the spark of hope rekindle. "That's a wonderful idea. Gratitude could guide us in this." The room buzzed with agreement as families began to share their feelings of gratitude. Voices intertwined, the air thickening with gratitude for family, for honesty, for laughter, even for struggle. Yet amidst the warmth, Sarah felt that weight again. The heavier stories still lurked in the corners, shadows that needed to be addressed. Raising her voice, she said, "We've seen the beauty in our stories tonight. But let us not shy away from pain. We've touched on deeper subjects, and I believe we're capable of facing them together." The room grew silent. Eyes turned in nervous tension, acting like a thread binding them, ready to snap at any moment. Just when Sarah thought they might retreat into silence, the woman from the back who had earlier been skeptical raised her hand. It was shaky yet steady, warmth replacing skepticism. "I want to share," she said, her voice softer now. "I've held back because I didn't want to burden anyone. But my story is real, and maybe it could help too." The whole room leaned in, a collective breath waiting as she unfolded her tale. It was raw and honest, laced with fear yet brimming with resolve. As she spoke, tears began to flow freely around the room, each drop a badge of courage worn openly. "And just like my journey, I think we've all carried burdens. We've all battled with those shadows we thought we could hide. But look at us here together," she finished. The response was instant, an eruption of applause intermingled with emotional affirmations. Amidst the supportive chorus, Sarah's heart soared. They were more than just a gathering for comfort food. They were a shared network of healing, interconnected through their deepest truths. As the night drew to a close, Sarah felt lighter, a new strength unfurling within. Hope wrapped around her like a warm blanket, while she exchanged glances with her friends. This was their new reality. A bridge connecting shared stories, laughter, and undeniable human connection. "Let us commit to this," Sarah called out, raising her glass filled with iced tea. "To sharing our stories, for those burdens we can lift together, and those connections we build as one family. Together, we can transform." But as they toasted, another flicker of realization sparked in the depths of her being. Would they stay strong? Together. The room echoed, seemingly synchronized in their newfound resolve, and that moment solidified shared strength, cementing a foundation based on love and understanding. As the gatherings progressed, their community grew stronger, more resilient. Every meeting became a stepping stone, tackling grief and gratitude while cherishing each other as hearts. They learned to navigate through tears of joy and sorrow, blossoming into a tapestry of unity. Reflecting back on that night, Sarah realized they had come too far to return. They were forever changed, the past intertwining with promises for the future. Her own ripple effects transformed fear into connection, vulnerability into strength. Sometimes, Sarah thought to herself, it takes the spark of honest conversations to unravel the hidden threads we hold within. And with every shared meal, the winds of change stirred gently, fueling an inspiring future in their hearts. This was the moment to act, to engage, support, and cherish every connection. So subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Every single share matters. You need to subscribe now. It's your chance to support others on this incredible journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share.